Hello, this is Mike, NoStressMike.com, on the way things used to be. More focusing on the 50s and 60s in the way of money. It's funny because at that time gold was illegal. I think. I'm gonna say I was kind of young on this stuff. Most of the gold was in jewelry that you would find. The gold coins were, they had gold coins that were I think 1932. You could have those gold coins, but you couldn't get other gold coins. I remember the Cougaran, the South African Cougaran was a gold coin, but I think it was illegal to have those. I'm not quite sure how that worked. And I say I was young on that. So, and I mentioned the cars. I say a '69 Mustang. I want to say I paid close to $2,500 for my Mustang Mach 1, and it was the fancy one. And you could get Mustangs. I know when they first came out, I think it was like 65, 66, 65, maybe 64. They first came out. You could get Mustangs for about maybe $1,400, something like that. And I had a motorcycle. I say when I was like 13 years old, so that'd been in the early 60s, maybe 62. And if I remember right, I paid $325, I think, for that. It was a two-cylinder Yamaha 100cc, and let's see, I say gas was running around about 12 cents a gallon. One time I worked in a grocery store, and I say when I was like 14 years old, something like that, and they would have specials and sales, and a loaf of sliced bread would be 1 penny, 1 cent, 1 cent for a loaf of bread when it's on sale. A lot of the, see, I'm trying to think of other prices. Well, first let's get it all, into where it makes sense. And wages, when I came back from Vietnam, I spent my whole year 68 in Vietnam, and I've got my tax paper. Well, one thing, I didn't have to pay taxes. When you go to a war zone, you don't have to pay taxes, so I didn't have to pay taxes. But I made $1,200 for that year, and for the year of 1968. Now, in that year of 68, I went to 4 pay grades. I was E1, and at the end of the year, I was an E4. And what that translates to, I can't tell you. But E1 is, like I say, very basic, on the very bottom, and then it goes up from there. And but anyway, it all totaled out to $1,200 I made for the year of 1968. So so prices, like I say, I came back from Vietnam. I bought a car, $2,500 for the car. That's 2 years' wages when you go my military wages. Military was at that time, they called it volunteer service. In the 70s, sometime in the 70s, they changed the military see, I don't know what they called it, but in the 70s, that's when they changed it into a volunteer military. It was in the 70s. And when they changed it to a volunteer military, the wages went way up. And so I really wasn't in the volunteer military, but I say because, you know, see, we had all of our equipment furnished to us. The volunteer military, even as of now, they buy a lot of their own equipment. And like I say, we did. And so that's one of the differences. I'm trying to think on wages, on what people were making. I know when I came back from Vietnam in '69, Israel offered me to do mercenary work for Israel, and that was at $3,000 a month. I'd be paid $3,000 a month. $2,000 a month? Well, that seems an awful lot. But that's what it was, $3,000 a month. And boy, wonder why I didn't take that job. I'll have to think on it more. But boy, that seems like an awful lot of money, $3,000 a month. Maybe it was $3,000 a year. But I don't know. I'll have to think on it. But I know Israel was hiring mercenaries. And a lot of the military people, especially coming back from Vietnam, were prized. We could get a lot of that type of work all over the world. You can go all over the world. I was surprised how many wars are continually going all the time. And even now I'm more aware of it. But at that time, you know, I was really shocked that there were so many wars going on, and they were hiring people to go to all these wars. So, but I say you could, and I mentioned in another video, $1 a day. When I was living at home, $1 a day, I could go out and have a lot of fun every day. And so, and the money, the coins, were made of 90% silver. So I mean, they had the coins had value themselves. So now it's funny because they had silver certificates in the way of paper money. They had silver certificates and they had gold certificates, and they looked just like a $1, $5, you know, kind of bills. They looked like a regular bill, except for, like I say, it would be writing on there. It says silver certificate. And even now, there's some people that collect them. They really don't have much value. It's just trying to find somebody that will think it's got value. Would be about it. That's another reason why I do coins, and because the coins will continue to hold their value. And it's funny because the same thing. Okay, we had we didn't have. Let's see, did we have silver dollars? I don't think we had silver dollars back at that time. It was the paper money. We didn't have very many silver dollars, and I think yeah, they pretty much stopped the silver dollars. But they still had, like I say, the quarters and dimes and the half dollars and this type of stuff. But let's see. I know. Let's see. I was paying $35 a month for Blue Cross Blue Shield hospital insurance. You know, at 19 years old. You know, what do you need insurance for 19 years old? So, but anyway, I had it. And see, at that, you got to remember also at that time, the rich are the ones that had insurance. I mean, we didn't even have to have car insurance. We didn't, you know. Now it's mandatory. You have to have car insurance. It's like the mandatory. You have to have your Obamacare. You know, these are the things that add cost to trying to make a living. And that's why in those days it was easier to make a living. You didn't have all these other mandatory costs that are dumped on you. And but I say, I'm trying to think of some other expenses. I know my father came through the Depression, and like I say, we had a restaurant, or he had a restaurant at that time, and soup was 5 cents for a soup and some bread, and so that was in the 20s. So, you know, the price didn't really go up that much from the 20s on up into I say the 50s. The 60s is where things really started, the prices really started going up. Like I say, the Corvette, I know when I bought my Mustang at $2,500, a Corvette was like $3,000 or $3,100 for a Corvette, and that was in the 60s, the late 60s. Now in the 70s, it really started going up even more and more, along with gas shortages. I say there was we were dependent on Saudi Arabia and that kind of stuff for oil, so then they cut off the oil, and that made us shortages, and people would be all lined up. And I remember the price, that's when the price of gas really started taking off too. Then, you know, I say it went from, you know, I say the 12 cents a gallon on up to, you know, 25 cents, 30 cents a gallon. It just continued to start going. The wages, I think, were 90 cents an hour in the mid 60s. I went into the oil business right about 1980, and at that time, let me see. No, I thought it was $1.25, but it was $1.25 a barrel of oil. I was thinking that was so much an hour. It was more than that, because I started working in the oil on an oil rig, and I was getting paid it was $2.25 an hour for wages in 1980, and I started working on the rig. It was $2.25, and I was making $4.25 an hour working on a rig. So I was making almost twice as much as the minimum wage, you know. So, and so I mean, it was that's the kind of wages that was going on from in the 80s, starting in the 80s. And so I would say, I bet you when I was a kid, when I started working, I think I was getting, I want to say 35 cents, and I don't remember if that was per hour or per day, is what I was making when I was, you know, say 12, 13 years old. You see, at that time, you know, anybody could work anytime. You can just find somebody that needs the help, and then you can get work. And but I say, there was no child labor laws and all this type of stuff, and that's what I say. So you learn a lot when you start working young like that. You work a lot. Man, I wish I could tell you more detail on the wages and prices at that time, because like I say, it was really an interesting time. You could do a lot because you didn't need permits, you didn't need licenses, you didn't need diplomas, you didn't need all this stuff. The job opportunities were immense. You could go, you could travel anywhere, you could do any kind of work. You didn't need permits and stuff like that. I'm not talking about kids, but I mean any kind of work. And like I say, there was no end on the opportunities that were out there. You just had to have the gumption to hustle and do something with, you know, with your life, and want to learn. This is Mike, NoStressMike.com.